Hello, everyone, and welcome to TheHours Live. Today on the call, we have Chainleft, and I'm in a little Discord call with him right now. If anyone is in the Discord, could you let me know if you can hear Chainleft talking? Why don't you try saying something?
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
I hope you hear me.
So he was talking for a little bit. Anyone hear that? Let's check the YouTube.
I can keep speaking if that helps.
Yeah. Oh, wait, did the live stream? I'm such a noob at live streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, it's showing up here. Oh, I think it's working. I think I can hear you on the live stream. Awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Well, someone yell at me if it's not working. There we go. Yeah, he says, yep. Okay, perfect. In that case, let's go ahead and get started. So why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah. So, hi, whoever's listening out there. So, yeah, my name is Chainleft, or at least my pseudonymous name is Chainleft in the Web3 space. Yeah, I've been by trade, I'm actually a data scientist originally. This is what I was trained on and what I've been working in my daily job. It's actually, I guess it's a little different now because, after a few years, your role becomes a little bit different. But yeah, that's pretty much the basis of what I've known. So, programming, of course, since the university, it's been something that I've been doing. So software development is pretty, I guess, a common skill that I have. And art has been like something that I've been always interested in. So I've done a little bit of street art, some photography, and so on. But the digital art, I guess, I mainly got into in around 2020. It was like pre-NFTs, to be honest, but it was very much like a hobby, like just trying to kind of actually, it started with making data visualization in Python and R, and then started using those tools. Yeah, started using those tools to make like funny shapes and so on. But it was very, very little. I wouldn't call it even, I mean, I wouldn't be, uh, I guess anything can be art, but I wouldn't even like call myself artist at the time because it was very much like a hobby and basic and not really a lot of time that I put into it at the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and in 2021 is when I started, looking at SVG particularly because, I've seen a few projects that utilize SVG to store stuff on chain. It was always something that was interesting for me. I think like since I've joined an NFT space in 2021, it was the one thing that was kind of, I guess, interesting for me, like just not just from a perspective of, the novelty of it, but from the perspective of even like a conceptual meaning behind, right? Like you can, permanence as a concept is interesting for me. Like, previously in street art, it's everything is temporary. You know that it can be temporary, and that's part of the appeal of it, actually. But
Hmm.
in digital space, I kind of find it a bit different. Like everything is so fast, so transitory. Having that permanence was conceptually interesting for me. And there are other things behind it as well, like using the a medium that is designed for financial transactions
Yeah.
and to store it for art. It was a bit like almost like like almost political, right? Like sticking it to the man almost a little bit, like I guess.
Sticking
So
it
so that was
to which man?
yeah, like the entire crypto space is full of speculation, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we have so much of it, and I don't participate in that kind of stuff that much, and I'm okay with other people's doing it. But I guess that was for me when I see artists doing that. Personally, when I do that, I feel like, oh, I'm doing different things. I'm doing something that is a bit more like almost ruining the fun of the Jenning, I guess. So it was like how it felt for me.
Yeah,
And of
I
course,
felt like something similar when I was learning more about crypto, that there were a lot of, I mean, I think the space is really exciting, but then especially last year there were just a lot of like crazy projects that seemed like they didn't make that much sense, and it kind of inspired me to try to make something that I thought was more actually interesting and more genuine. But I'm actually curious to know more about your transition from kind of a data science or like a data viz background, because um, I've seen that in other, I've heard other stories of people who have done something similar. And whenever I look online for like trying to fix some bug with SVG or some kind of a JavaScript bug, a lot of times the answer is in like a D3 like forum or like a community around some kind of data viz tool. And it seems like there's just
yeah,
a lot of overlap there between like generative art and like visual graphics and the kind of data visualization community.
yeah. Like I mean, I think my first really like trying of doing a sort of generative art, and let's be clear, like I haven't done a generative art project yet. I've done a lot of one-on-ones and so on, but one-of-ones, but I haven't done or released yet any gen art project. But when I did experiment with gen art first time, that was like I used Python, right? And it's like
Hmm.
probably the most common tool you use as a data scientist. And yeah, like when I make those researches about the art side of usage of Python, which is kind of not that common, but it's like most of the time you will encounter these side of answers from visualization builders that can answer your questions. So yeah, that's very very common actually.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think there's a lot of similarity there between like creating a data viz and creating a generative art script, because both of them are kind of tools that sort of abstract some kind of unpredictable underlying data. Like you want to make a nice dashboard that will make whatever the numbers are, whatever the chart is, whatever the trend lines are, you want it to look good. And when you create a generative art script, you're kind of doing the same thing with whatever seed it is, or some people have made some that will like visualize blocks of, different blocks on Ethereum or someone's wallet address. It's they're both kind of like taking numbers and turning it into something visual.
Yeah, yeah, and making sense of the things that are normally not sensible, maybe even.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well, what do you
So
think about like for the future of generative art, or what are your thoughts on like where the journey of generative art and like what it's going through right now, and what do you think the future holds for it?
Oh, I think it's a lot on. It's a lot similar to what you've been doing, actually, Lawrence.
Hmm.
Because I'm super interested in fully on-chain art, and there are a lot of projects that do that already now. But I guess like last 6 months or so, I've been mostly like even more interested in the on-chain stuff that is using the on-chain mechanics. So the things that are actually possible only using the blockchain as a medium for the art mechanics, not just as a medium for transaction, or not just as a medium to sell the art, but actually, or even not even just to store the art, but actually use it to do runtime art maybe, or to do the things that you're doing, like this auction mechanics where you know have people collaborate and actually build their artwork. This is the kind of thing that excites me the most, because actually this is an element that I even haven't fully explored yet, but this collaborative side of it is very unique to crypto, right? Like you know, you have all these communities, you have the blockchain where you can interact directly without actually even knowing the person. Um, and it's all permissionless, right? So anyone can
Yeah.
come and bid to this auction that you're doing here. So that's what really I think excites me. I think in terms of you know, in crypto space, that doing things that are not possible otherwise in art world. I genuinely believe that in these decades, like in 2020s and 30s and 40s, it's very likely that the most interesting, the most groundbreaking type of art will happen on blockchain, in my opinion. And this
Hmm.
is kind of thing that will be the pioneer. This is just a, I mean, it might be a bias in being a bubble of, you know, crypto space, but this is how it feels to me, at least. It's very exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the as far as like art overall, I'm not as much of an expert on that, or I don't have a strong opinion, I guess, on what, out of all types of art, high art, music, movies, all of that. I'm not sure what the intersection will be with blockchain, but I feel like for digital art specifically, blockchain is like a really, really nice opportunity, just because it's like hard to get a strong sense of ownership of digital art. And this is aside from even just like fully on chain art or blockchain art, just the idea of like and a lot of the, really, really successful generative artists had careers as generative artists before blockchain, right? But then when blockchain comes along, I feel like it creates so many opportunities for that art to have a stronger sense of ownership. So I think that it just seems like the future of digital art has to include blockchain at some point. Like, why would it not? But then aside from just that concept of ownership, there's so many interesting ways to experiment with, these different mechanics. And that's what I've been excited to explore. And I definitely agree that there will be hopefully a lot of like interesting explorations over the next decade.
You can do only one of, sorry, I'm gonna just
Oh
jump
yeah.
into
Yeah, go
this.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can
we're
only
all watching Chainleft play with the current auction number 23, which
yeah.
is the 24th auction because it starts at 0. So this is closing out the first day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And what was your question?
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, can you do only one change? Like you can only
That's
do
right.
either italic. Okay. So the thing is, if I do italicize and if I actually win the auction in this hour, I would probably have a rarer piece, right? Because it would
That's
have the
right.
italicized. But at the same time, I feel like this is nicer aesthetically.
Yeah.
Like
I
if I
think
do something.
honestly that balance has been really cool to see because in the first quite a few auctions, or I'm not sure which ones exactly. We could go back and look actually, but there were a lot where people didn't choose the rarer action. But they picked like circle. A lot of times people just kept picking circle. I think just because like everything had been circles up to that point, and it just seemed like it fit. And I was kind of surprised because normally with these kinds of mints, people barely even look at the token itself. They just go on OpenSea and find the rarest one, and then that determines the price. I feel like this has probably been done, but it'd be interesting to see some more prominent, artists release their collections without actually using that many traits as kind of a counter argument to that type of collecting. But so many collectors really rely on that and care about that a lot that it might be a little bit too aggressive to do that. But it would be great if the value of the pieces were mostly determined by like how much people like really like the aesthetic of it, not just like which traits are checked off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the circle thing here is not just because of the circle itself, but I mean, I don't know, maybe if people thought that, but Like one thing I have already in mind here is that, other people will build on top of it. And
Yeah,
the
exactly.
circle is the only way to get some sort of curved line. Like, so basically, if I move it on the side even, like just not not even, just a little bit, and then uh, so I did
Yeah.
it just like this way. Yeah.
Yeah, we've
So,
seen a lot of big circles like off to the side just to get like some curved arcs through the screen. It's been really
yeah.
cool to see.
So I think that's kind of the reason why people chose that as well. It actually looks pretty nice, like until now.
Yeah. I've had
I'm
a
I'm
lot of
pretty
fun. You can also go back. If you click the back arrow, we can look at some of the other ones. Was the one right before this? I think it was also in italicized. So it's kind of funny that there's two in a row. So there's a little arrow right above where it says hour 23. Um, that little button. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
one before that. Yeah.
So it was italicized and then they zoomed out. It was funny when you were scrolling over italicized though. I thought it'd be funny if you just like reversed it back basically to
Yeah, I thought about it, but I actually like the version that they've done now.
yeah.
Oh, someone
It's
actually
pretty
did
nice, I think.
further someone bid on a further utilization.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it will be rarer.
Even
But
more rare, yeah. So the
yeah,
current bid
but
is more italicized. Okay.
yeah, well, I think I'm gonna go a little bit differently. I think I'm gonna actually add a circle. Actually, let's experiment with this a little bit as well. But I can't italicize this, right? It will just be like this
Yep.
this rectangle.
You can only,
Oh,
yeah, just pick one of those.
it's hard to choose then. Like it's a tough choice.
Yeah. This is an
So whoever,
interesting like starting point too, because I feel like it's already very kind of composed and tight. Anything you add will probably feel like it's like a very separate thing.
yeah, and I'm fine with that actually. It's just more,
That's cool. I like that.
yeah. I like that the person before did the scale like zoom out.
Yeah.
That's how, like, thanks to that person is why we can actually do this. So what is the tough thing here? I'm trying to find the right color here with the correct opacity, because
Right.
when I actually use the color directly, I can't get the full opacity, so I don't know actually what happens here. Um,
Yeah, because it's probably like a couple colors mixed together at this point.
what is
I'm
what is the
guessing
opacity?
if
What is the
you make
opacity
it darker, if you pick a slightly darker color,
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Try like slightly
yeah,
darker, but
that's
I think
pretty
it needs to be also a
close.
little red there, maybe.
That looks pretty close, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, like this. What is the maximum opacity you can have here?
I think it's zero point 0.9
0.9.
and
Okay.
the minimum is like zero point 0.3, I think. I have to go double check in the code. There's still, I mainly did that so that it would be a little bit more. I was trying to think of how much like control to give people. And like one thing I was kind of curious about would be, would people just kind of wipe the screen by just painting a giant, full opacity rectangle on top of the screen? And I don't actually know if that's that bad. I think I could, it would have been fine because first of all, people can like bid on it if they really feel like that's like ruining it, they can try to outbid it. But I also don't know if that really ruins it that much. Like I feel like it's cool to kind of get a fresh start, and like have kind of a blank slate again. But at the time I decided to keep it at zero point 0.9 so that way it wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to do that. And it's been working so far. Were you trying to place the bid? Oh, okay. So it's
Yeah.
sending.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Let's. Sorry, just to quickly. I don't know what's happening here.
Maybe it's just gas fluctuations.
This weekend, especially.
Yeah. Well,
With the
yesterday was crazy when I had launched it around 5 and then by 9 or 10 gas was like 200 plus. And it was just, oh, nice. There it is. Congrats on placing your bid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll close out
Like,
that thought and then we can also wrap up to not take up too much time. But yeah, I felt lucky that I had deployed at least, because if I hadn't, deploying the contracts would have been really expensive. I probably would have had to just postpone it just because, it would be too chaotic. But I wasn't out of the clear yet, because I'm basically using something called Chainlink automation to settle the auction when it's finished. So like when the auction finished, you can't place any more bids, but nothing really happens until someone sends a transaction saying settle the auction, mint the NFT to the winner, that kind of thing. And it was really expensive, so I was kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know, should we pause it? But there were still people bidding even in the midst of that, competing over hours like 6, 7, 8 around that time. It was a really fun time.
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, these sometimes like when the gas spikes, it's hell for artists when they're trying to do something fun
Yeah.
like this.
At least mine it'll last for at least a week. So there's plenty of time left to kind of, if I were just doing one big drop and I had like, told everyone like today is the drop, it's happening, and then there's a huge gas spike for 3 hours, then that would be a lot harder to deal with. But in this case, there's plenty of time left for people to still interact with it. And now that the gas is lower.
Yeah, like with the well, I don't remember what was the gas around when you released Jackson. That was that went like in minutes, right? Like it
Yeah,
took like
it sold out really fast. That was a really big shock to me too. But I feel like I do have some theories. Obviously, I've thought a lot about, that collection and how to reproduce it. I think my current theory is I did get some really nice help from some friends who retweeted it, obviously, and I'm really grateful for that. I think overall, though, the timing was actually interesting because it was like July last year, so definitely after like the big drop. Things had dropped a lot from like February. But it was still kind of early, and I think people were still willing to vote with their dollars or vote with their Ethereum, I guess, on collections that they thought could, bring the space back, or like that they thought were worth it, that weren't just PFP projects.
yeah.
So I think a lot of people were kind of holding their breath to see like, oh, which collections are still going to launch? Are people still going to build in the space? Oh, here's a project that's trying to do something really like blockchain native. I'm gonna vote on that. But these days, now that it's been a long time since then, I feel like it's still been it's been a little bit tougher just because the market has gone down even more, and so it's just that there's not as much excitement, I guess, as there was back then.
Yeah, well, maybe that, or maybe just because the like at the time, wow, it's July. I remember it like yesterday. It was has it been like
Trust
nine
me, me
months
too.
already? Wow, I remember minting Jackson. Very excited. I was very excited as well. I think. I think actually there is still quite a lot of excitement about this stuff, but I mean, this mechanics that you now deployed, this like hourly auction, obviously that prevents that immediate, like artwork, like you can actually experience the change of the artwork, right? That's why
Hmm.
you did this essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, why don't we wrap up in a bit? But before we go, is there anything you want to share with anyone about some projects that you're working on?
Well,
Any works in progress, or just like anything that you're excited about in general, as vague as you want?
yeah, so as I mentioned, so as much as the data science was my main or daily job, original job, I kind of started doing a lot of art since last year. So I've done a collection of one-of-ones and editions as well, called Art Ponzi. It had some like a weird mechanics I implemented. And then I've done some fake rare. All of them are fully on chain. Everything I've done are fully on chain. I've done some actually inscriptions as well. I think I might actually this was so I said I didn't do any generative art, but actually I did. This one was generative art, an audio visual, but only 10 pieces I released on inscriptions.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, all of them are sold out.
Nice.
The only so the fake rare also got sold out. So
What
now
was that
what I want
process
to
like
do.
with inscriptions?
Oh, inscriptions were hell at the time. Now it's a bit easier actually.
Yeah.
There are a lot of tools now. But that was the early days, and I realized like there are some pieces, but there weren't like I saw there was audio, and I saw there were a lot of course visual pieces, but there was no audio visual art. And basically nobody I think even used HTML actually up until that point. It was like around 40K, 50K, inscriptions at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
So I thought, okay, like let's be the first there.
Yeah.
So I actually, I mean, I honored them and I kind of, mentioned them in my like announcement as well, of course. So there's this collection called In Noise We Trust in on Ethereum. I really love that collection. I like huge fan of that collection. It's an audiovisual generative art project. So I looked at their code and I changed, of course, the codes like to create my own, unique outputs. But I started
Mm.
from their code essentially. It was very like their code is super complex. My mine is a bit simpler, but so I used that code and I kind of started generating like new outputs with that, and like of course, changing the algorithm a bit. So both the visual and audio outputs are a little bit like different than what they had in their own code. But eventually, basically, I was able to produce like new outputs, like unique original artworks, and I added also metadata to the HTML. So that way, basically, I had them inscribed around like 50K. Maximum was, I think, 55K or something,
Hmm.
like the highest number. And then, yeah, then I launched it and people liked it and they bought it. And that's how it worked. The whole
That's
thing is
amazing.
like OTC. Like there was no really any kind of trust trading mechanism as it is the case with Ethereum.
What do you mean by OTC?
On the counter. So, they send the money, you send them the art piece.
I
That's
see.
how,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean that I'm gonna have the team behind Cathartis
Yeah.
talking to them tomorrow. Have you been following that project?
Yeah, it's awesome. I love what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
So they're I think they're like in end of March, I think they're releasing, right?
I think that's their plan, yeah. Which is fast approaching though.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to that one as well. I love these types of, like no, like it's completely chain agnostic, very, you know, uh, like playing with all these different ways to do something, right? Doesn't even have to be like on chain or anything. I just love this way of pushing the concepts that you can do with blockchains and so on. To me like there's so much to explore actually in that conceptual side of things with blockchain. So that's kind of what I want to do as well. Oh, actually, yeah. So that's what I was going to mention. So I've done those things, and now I want to explore a bit more this Gen art side of things. I want to explore a
Mm.
bit more because I feel like I've developed myself very well. I think on SVG side and even HTML side and JavaScript and so on. So I feel like I can produce good one-of-one outputs. But what I want to do now is like almost like a new challenge and also use these on-chain mechanics, and this is why I love what you're doing, like this, not just putting something on chain but actually playing with the mechanics of the blockchain as well. And that's why I'm so excited about it. Like what I want to do as well is something similar that's I mean very different mechanics, but it's using blockchain in a unique way to make the art create new concepts essentially. So that's what I'm trying to do. I have the Gen Art project that I'm working on, and let's be clear. Like Gen Art is still new to me, so I'm still kind of that's the challenge that I'm exploring now to
Hmm.
improve more. But the idea is, oh, should I close?
Oh, yeah, I just saw you.
Oh,
Is
whatever.
that Chrome? You can always if you right click, you can do reopen last tab.
I think I can.
I'm not sure if that's
So
Chrome. That shortcut has saved me many times before, like a work presentation.
I think I can do it by doing this.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
This is the artwork. That I mean, it's just one of the outputs, of course. Like there are gonna be many more, but
Nice. And I love the kind
and
of subtle, like, jitteriness of it. It's really intense.
yeah. So that jitteriness actually changes with runtime. So like
Oh,
that's the idea. At least in Solidity. So it's there, there are ways to do this, like of course, block hash and so on. Um, and what is also interesting is that it evolves over time. That that it reaches a level that it becomes more almost chaotic, but at the same time, that chaos connects the pieces more together with the rest of the collection as well.
hmm.
So when you have like in the this is what you're seeing right now is day zero essentially, but in for example day 700 or something like that, the way it looks like will be something like this.
Wow.
And what happens is that, and there's a lot of variation, of course, in the actual collection. Like you have the different, the shape that you've seen in the beginning is like a version of it, but there are many other ways of it. But this color palette eventually almost they look almost like closer to each other. They don't really become exactly the same. They don't ever become exactly the same, but they become much closer to each other, those pieces over time. The idea behind this is like kind of to show the how that becomes more chaotic, and over time with the chaos, the entropy actually leads to the natural state of things. So this
Yeah,
is
I
kind
love
of the
that.
message that this is trying to give. Also there will be and I haven't written that part of the Solidity yet, but it's like the part that I'm actually now working on a lot is to along with actually increasing the variation in the collection, is to change to allow the user to move the piece from a certain day to another day. So, when you reach day 700, you can actually move it back to day 400, for example, if you liked that version.
Oh,
So,
I
so that
love
would be the,
that. I think that's really cool because I think there's, how I was mentioning, like, oh, is like ownership is better on the blockchain. I feel like
Mhm.
sure you have like a record saying you're the owner, but if being the owner means that you can also, change one of the attributes of it, or like pick which, in this case, like pick which like state that you like the most about it, I think that makes it even more powerful.
Yeah.
And so I really like that idea.
Yeah, and I like the collections where there is a relation between the relationship between the collector and the art and the artist,
Hmm.
where a lot of collectors, of course, like just collecting and vaulting maybe their assets, but also there is this. I like this active participation, like you can see in some collections. I mean, that's those are the collections that I've been very fond of in the past few months. That especially like things like terraforms and reliquary. There are a few collections like that that actually explore this similar concept of ownership and active participation of the ownership. So that's sort of what I'm also very having fun with,
Yeah.
and this is why I like what you're doing as well. This is like literal participation in the art. Like this is like excellent. It's exactly what I
Thank you.
want.
I
Yeah.
think your
So
idea is really nice too because I like that there's participation, but there's like a balance between how much
yes.
work is it. And first of all, for like this kind of the idea for the hours, there's a lot of similar projects where it's like the Reddit thing or like $1 million
Right.
website where like you can edit one pixel and somehow
Yeah.
people are supposed to draw something together, but that's like way too hard to do on blockchain to actually coordinate like 1,000 people to draw each pixel or something. And
Hmm.
one that I'm curious if you've thought much about this for QQL. I just had this thought
Oh, yeah,
recently
yeah.
of like, I love QQL. Obviously, it's like really impressive and really successful, but still, there's 1,000 mint passes and like 200 have been used.
Yeah, that's
And the
disappointing.
price
Yeah.
of the mint passes is higher than the floor price of the pieces, which I feel like part of that's just because people are like, there's too many like tokenomics going on, but also I feel like it's just a lot of pressure now to like come up with an output that is going to like hold up to the floor price, and like be a true work of art. Like there's so many knobs and so many things you can adjust in the QQL algorithm that maybe it's almost too much to ask for from like a collector.
That's true. Maybe that's why actually. That's a good point. Like I was always thinking it was a bit disappointing in that case, like where you had so many, like, only a few actual mints out of it. But you're also right, like there is a lot of pressure. Like you want to do something really good if you're gonna do it. And then it kind of there is a lot of parameters, like you said, so then it becomes almost like a decision paralysis, right? Like people
Yeah.
can't actually proceed further. So yeah, I understand that. I think yeah, that might be the case. Yeah, I mean that's maybe why you actually have these limitations here, right? Like you have these, it changes occasionally. As you, I think it was here in the gallery. It was where, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why you have these like different versions of those being available occasionally, not all of them available all at once. It's actually a really good idea because you actually make it more. I guess you make it basically a bit more balanced, essentially.
Yeah. And I think there's also the time limit part of it, of there's only 1 hour. I mean, you can keep extending it, but maybe QQ. I mean, I'm nitpicking with QQL because I love that project so much, but maybe they
Yeah.
should have had the mint passes like expire after a certain amount of time, or maybe they're happy with it. But I feel like it's still kind of disappointing that so many of the mint passes haven't been used. And it makes you wonder, like, are they ever going to be used, or like what's going to happen with it? Yeah, it's
Quad
interesting.
triple effect.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just like admiring this, like this quad effect made it like so cool. Like
Yeah,
it's
this
really
one
cool.
is great. That one had a bunch of different bids too. Let's see, which hour was it?
That was 16.
17. Yeah. So if you go back to the homepage and then rewind, you can click through. There was some back and forth there that was fun to watch when it happened.
So
Yeah.
15
So if
with
you go to
this and
16, you can click on the different bids that lost, and you can see what. So that was the first one. I actually really liked that one too. Then these were all great. I thought they were all good, but then actually I do think the one that won was,
this is the best.
it's
Come on,
really
yeah,
cool. Yeah, just creating those little
yeah,
lines there.
yeah. Well done to Kim James. It's really
Yeah.
cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was a great
Yeah.
conversation, and thanks so much for everyone for joining. We're going to be doing a few more of these live streams. Tomorrow we have one at 11 a.m. Eastern time with the Cathartes team. And if anyone knows any other artists or NFT enthusiasts or collectors who you think might be interested in joining, feel free to let me know or introduce us, because we have about a week or longer for more live streams, and it'd be great to have more people on the show. So thanks again to Chainleft, and I'll see you all in the next live stream.